And we're back. Welcome to episode 42 of the Punching Down podcast. If you're listening to this, it's currently Wednesday night. Well, it's not Wednesday night. Technically it's Thursday morning. I always feel that like it's 12:06 a.m. right now, but you're like, I know it's Wednesday night, but it's technically Thursday morning. You're listening to this on Thursday afternoon, or watching this if you're watching on YouTube, or if you don't watch it the day it comes out or listen to it, then it's whatever the day it is. I gotta say, I talked about this last week because I've moved the podcast. I was doing the podcast on Mondays. I was doing them on Mondays and sometimes Tuesdays, and I kept getting burned. Lots of crazy shit kept happening on Wednesdays, and I kept like putting out a podcast, like recording it on a Tuesday, putting it on a Wednesday morning, and then people would be listening to it as something crazy happened, like the Capitol Hill stuff or whatever. So now we're doing it on Wednesdays. It's coming out on Thursdays, and it happened again, and I'm glad for it. So normally I don't really talk about the world of finance very much. I don't know if many people here know. Some people who are listeners do know, but I am the editor of a finance satire website. It's called Hard Money. It's from the same people who do the Hard Times and Hard Drive, two very popular online publications. I was brought in to basically help run this website. About 5 months ago, something like that. We've been working on it. So I know a bit about the world of stocks, all that stuff, but I don't really talk about it because it seems like, not really the vibe of this show. But today, and I've been speaking with, it's just like, it's a world that I feel like never really crossed over into this podcast. But today, oh boy, today did it cross over. It might not be done crossing over. I might be here next week talking about this shit all over again. And the crazy fallout. So today was quite the wild day. So if people don't know what's going on with the GameStop saga, and honestly, I have had so many comedians and friends I know message me about this today. So many people. It's crazy being like, yo, what's going on with GameStop? Everybody talking about GameStop. So I'm going to talk about it this week because I'm fairly well informed. I've been following this story for months. Sad to say, I actually bought shares of GameStop in October. I believe it was October when they were not even $9 a share. I remember I bought them. Pretty good amount too. Like I would be very, very rich. I bought shares at GameStop. And by the way, nothing, I know this is probably like eye rolling, but nothing on here is financial advice. I know, please don't take anything I say as advice. But so I bought GameStop in October. So I've been following it. So I don't even know where exactly to start. If you don't know the story behind all this stuff. So there's this subreddit. It's called Wall Street Bets. It's become incredibly famous in the last week or two. But so basically what happened is it started out as like a bit of a joke. Everybody, they call themselves autists and retards. Like they just casually refer to themselves as autists. It's all a big joke. The posts that do the best are people who just post a photo of their account being like, hey, I maxed out a credit card, bought this like short dated call option, which if you don't know what an option is, it's basically like a way to really gamble on stocks. And you have super high rewards, super high risk, like, because normally if you buy a share of a company, the only way that your bet's going to go to zero is if the company goes completely bankrupt and it goes to zero, right? Which doesn't happen. It's rare that a stock, even the worst stocks, like if you take like a BlackBerry, for example, which was $200 at its heyday, and then now is $20 or $30. I don't even know what it's at right now. It's a meme stock as well, which I'll try and explain all this stuff. But so this subreddit, they start out, I don't know when they started out. It's been around for years. And, it's everybody's just joking about, oh, I lost so much money. Look at my account. I'm down minus 99.99%. And people would be like, I lost 400,000. And the more money people lose, the more they're applauded. Like, it's a real, like, making a joke out of this whole, out of the world of finance. And the more money you lose and the dumber shit you do, the more people like you. And if you're like, hey, I have a hot tip where, this company's like going to increase their sales by 3%. And I think, if you hold this stock for 20 years, you might get a pretty nice return. People will they'll ban you from the fucking subreddit. Like, they're the opposite of Warren Buffett. They're the anti-Warren Buffetts. Hopefully you know who Warren Buffett is. If you don't, pause this podcast, go check out who Warren Buffett is. So during I would say, I don't know the exact point, but last year, during the huge crash, the market crashed pretty hard after the COVID announcements. If you don't know, it was a massive crash. I think it dropped 30 or 40%, something like that, something big. I don't know the exact number. So this guy, he went on there and he posted. Now, obviously, this guy wasn't like some poor rags to riches story or anything like that. He definitely wasn't poor. He had $100,000. I believe it was $100,000, 50 or 100,000, but I believe it was $100,000. And he goes, hey, I have this position. I started a position in GameStop, GameStop, the retailer. So most people who know GameStop they're like the mall-based video game retailer that sells video games and like Funko Pops. I've never purchased anything from a GameStop in my life. Granted, they don't have them in Canada. Or maybe they don't. I'm not even sure. The closest version they had in Canada was a thing called EB Games, and I think like most of them went under. Because here's the thing, right? They're mostly in malls, which COVID has done a number on like brick and mortar shopping. Like, there's so many people's habits have changed where they're like never going back to in-person shopping for certain items. Like, I'll give you a perfect example of myself. I have Amazon Prime and I live in New York, and Amazon Prime has this thing, a tab in it where you're like, hey, you can just order food from Whole Foods. Whole Foods used to be super expensive, but Amazon bought them, right? And you can just order your groceries from Whole Foods. You pick out all your groceries. I order them. Any order over $35, it's at your house. They deliver it for free. I got my order. It was there in like 2 hours. I was like, this is crazy. I don't know if I'll ever go to a grocery store ever again. I will, because you can't always get it in 2 hours. But my point is, a lot of people's habits have changed. They're not going into stores to buy stuff. On top of that, GameStop sells video games, which I'm not a gamer, but as far as I understand, you don't buy physical video games anymore. You download them, right? Why would the fuck? Like, certain maybe like pre-releases, or like the day a game comes out, or for example, like when a console comes out. I know PS5s are hard to come by. The new Xbox is hard to come by. So yeah, you make some money off of like the consoles, but a new console only comes out every, 7 years. Something like that, like 5 to 10 years is the console life cycle. So it's not like consoles are like, maybe GameStop is selling a lot of consoles now because, and there's a lot of demand for them. But, before the PS5 came out, you could just go on Amazon, go on Best Buy, click, buy a PS4, and it was at your house the next day. And you didn't get it from GameStop for cheaper. And I'm sure if you're a diehard Wall Street Bets person and you're listening to this, you're probably like, this guy's a fucking retard. He doesn't get it. And I don't get it. Okay. So anyways, GameStop shares got hammered with COVID because people are like, yeah, nobody's ever going back to the mall. They're a mall-based retailer. Their business is like, makes no sense for the future. Their stock got hammered. Like, it went down to, I think, like $2 or something, $3 from like, I don't know what their highs were, but it was something like high, $30, $50, and it went down to $2, $3. So if you could imagine, if you held it, you just were holding on to it, you got fucking smoked. Okay. So then this guy goes on Wall Street Bets. This is some point last year, and he goes, look, I'm buying GameStop for a few reasons. One of the reasons is, he's like, I think they're going to turn around their business. People aren't giving them credit for this new cycle of consoles. This console cycle is going to make them a lot of money. People aren't really factoring that in, that there's this new cycle as well. And this was an added added kind of wrinkle to the story was he goes, so basically what happens in the stock market is you can either buy a stock or you can short a stock. Buying a stock is what most people do is you can bet on a stock. You say, I want to buy 1 share of Apple, and if the price of Apple goes up, if you buy it at 100, it goes to 150, you just made $50. Okay. But what you can also do, and it's the proliferation of all like the Robinhoods and all this like easy trading apps, is you can what's called shorting a stock, where you're actually betting against it, right? So you can, and the way it works is if you own what happens is your brokerage lends you the shares. So say you want to say short. We'll just use this example. I want to short GameStop, okay? Because this is obviously what we're talking about. I want to short 100 shares of GameStop. So what your brokerage does, say it's Robinhood, is they go find 100 shares of GameStop that someone owns who bought it, right? So someone bought 100 shares. They take those shares from that person's account. They don't actually like literally move them or anything, but they say, okay, we have 100 shares. We're going to lend them to person X or whoever wants to short them. We're going to lend them to you at a small amount of interest, right? And we'll let you sell them first. So basically what happens is they go, okay, here's 100 shares. You sell them. So say you sell GameStop at $50 a share. And then GameStop drops to $40 a share. You just then go on the open market, buy the shares back for $40 and return the shares. Essentially, you go, here's your broker. I just bought the shares back. Here you go. And I just bought, it's the classic adage, buy low, sell high. So I bought them for $40, sold them for $50. I made $10 a share. Now, the thing with shorting that's different from buying stock is that when you buy a stock, like I mentioned earlier, you can only lose what you put in, right? It's like if you buy a stock for 1 share of a stock for $100, it goes down to zero. You lost $100. It can't go negative zero. You can only lose your $100. However, shorting, theoretically, you can lose an unlimited sum of money. Now, there's mechanisms in place so that you don't do it. But theoretically, if these mechanisms didn't exist, a stock can theoretically go to $1 trillion, but it can only go to zero. It can go to zero. It can go to $1 trillion. It'll trade somewhere in between that range. Obviously, it's like, as an example, I'm saying it can go to $1 trillion. But so you theoretically have unlimited liability when you short a stock. So basically, so this guy says, the amount of people who are short shares is public information. Like you go to any like Yahoo Finance, Google Finance, it's called the short interest or short ratio. And it tells you the percentage of the shares, the total shares that exist that are basically have been sold by short sellers. So GameStop, because so many people, mostly like hedge funds, but just regular people as well, were so certain that what I said earlier was such an obvious thing where they're like, look, the console thing is like, who cares about consoles? People just download their video games. Like, what, your whole business is going to be based on Funko Pops? Like, you're going the way of Radio Shack or whatever. You're going fucking bankrupt. So all these hedge funds went and bet against GameStop. And what happened is it's almost like how fractional reserve banking works. Is so the brokerages, because I guess there's no law against this, which you'll see this law will be changing fucking ASAP. You can have short interest of more than 100%. So if there's more than, say there's 5 million shares, you can literally have more than 5 million shares sold short. And now a key factor of explaining what's going on with this whole GameStop thing right now and why it's just getting so crazy is in order to close a short position, basically get out of your position, you have to buy the stock, right? And the way that stocks, the most simplistic way of understanding price in stocks is that stocks go up when there's more buyers than sellers, and stocks go down when there's more people selling than buying. It's literally what it is. Like it seems like there's a lot more to it, but that's all it is. it's the case with anything that has a price tag, is that the price goes up when there's more people who want to buy them than there are who wants to sell them, and vice versa. Okay, so where was I at? I'm losing my place. So, anyways, yeah. So companies like brokerages started lending out shares. So they say, okay, we have 100 shares, we'll lend you 100 shares to sell, and then someone else would be like, hey, I also want to short them. And they would just lend them the same 100 shares so that they cause there to just be this over 100% short. Like the short interest in GameStop was 100. I think it's currently, as we speak, 125%, but it was like 140%. Okay. And so there's a thing called a short squeeze. And what happens is, this is what I was getting at. So when you're short and you need to get out, what happens is the reason generally you need to get out is because the price keeps climbing and you're now losing all this money and you're worried that you're going to get, there's not that it's really a risk, but you're like, I'm going to lose a lot of money. And the more it continues to climb, the more money I lose. But the problem is that you now need to buy all these shares. And the more buying you do, the more the stock price goes up because you're now just adding all this additional stock that's being bought that would have otherwise not been purchased. It's what's called a short squeeze, and it's happening in the most monumental fucking fashion. So this guy basically figures out, he goes, there's 140% short interest going on. So if I'm right and this starts going against him, he's like, this short interest, and he's like, these companies are going to have to cover their shorts just because, they're going to start getting kind of like uncomfortable losses. They're going to have to start covering their shorts. And that in and of itself, them just exiting this short position is going to make the stock continue to climb, right? It's just going to keep going and going and going. Because the fact is that to get out, you need someone to sell you shares. You can't, like you have to have someone selling you shares. So this guy figured this out and he started posting it in the subreddit, Wall Street Bets. He goes, hey, here's my position. He bought all these options. He bought 10,000 shares and then he bought all these options. I think he spent $100,000. At one point after the crash, he was down $50,000. So his 100,000 had turned into 50,000. His name's, I believe his handle is Deep Fucking Value. It's either Deep Value or Deep Fucking Value. Okay. And nobody knows who he is. So he posts this transaction saying, "Hey, this is my thesis. They have all these like memes on Wall Street Bets, but he goes, I have diamond hands, because they say there's weak hands, paper hands, where you're like, oh, I get scared and I sell out. But so he goes, I have diamond hands. I had weak hands. Well, not weak hands, but because I bought based off of in October, I bought shares of GameStop around $9 a share, partially because of this guy. And I was like, wow, this short interest thing is crazy. But then also because some of the people I work with on this finance site, this one guy is a former hedge fund manager, and he's friends with Michael Burry. Michael Burry is the guy from The Big Short. He's the guy who Christian Bale plays. And Michael Burry was long shares of GameStop. He's like bought for a similar reason because of this crazy short squeeze. He kind of figured this out and he goes, this is going to get really out of hand and I can make a lot of money. So, and I bought them at $9. It went up I remember it went up one day like 40%. And I was like, oh man, my shares are up 40%. I'm selling out of here. And I felt like a fucking genius. I was like, oh man, I made 40% in 2 days. Now, had I held, I would have been up, I don't know, a lot. At least $500,000, something like insane. Like it's I can't even think about it because whatever, it is what it is. But so this guy was like, I'm holding, I'm not doing anything. And he's like, I'm not selling. I forget what his price target was, but he kept adjusting the price target up. And it started building momentum because the trade started going in his favor. And that's another thing too. When I bought it, it had already tripled in like 2 months or something. So I was like, man, or 3 months. I'm like, man, you don't generally want to buy a stock that's recently tripled. You're kind of like, not to say that it's necessarily going to not end well. Obviously, in this case, it ended fantastically. But, you don't always want to do that. And up until I didn't even think about this whole thing up until recently, because up until 2 weeks ago, the shares of GameStop were only $20. But so what happened is he kept posting this thing, and so his $50,000 loss becomes he's even, then he's up 50 grand, he's up 100 grand, and he keeps posting, and he's not selling, and everybody's like, man, this guy's fucking crazy. As of today, his screenshot, his $100,000 investment was worth $48 million. He's just a guy. I mean, obviously a guy that has some money, because he had 100 grand to potentially just blow. At least if he was completely wrong, he would have lost 75 grand at least. So anyways, it's not like some poor kid who's all of a sudden has $48 million, but this guy has $48 million as of today. But so the more that his trades started working, the more this caught on Wall Street Bets. And everybody was like, it became like a meme, like just owning the stock became a meme. And then people started doing real research where they go, look, there's some things we can do. We know that these short sellers, the more that this climbs up, they're starting to get nervous because they're losing money. Every time this stock goes up $1, they're losing X millions of dollars. And we're talking, a lot, like a lot of money is being lost by these giant hedge funds every time it goes up. And so they start realizing that they're like, look, if we just buy and then refuse to sell, like they're essentially doing what people in Bitcoin were doing, which is they're the holding on for dear life. We're going to look, we're just going to buy our shares and then we're going to hold them. And if we hold them, that's that many less shares that are available for these shorts to buy the shares to get out of their shorts, which will cause the stock price to keep going up and up and up. And then they were doing all these tricks. So it's like if you own shares, basically if you have a Robinhood account and you own shares of a company, you automatically opt in to allow them to borrow your shares. Okay. Something just happened with my computer. Okay, we're back. You automatically opt in for them to loan your shares out to people who are short. But so then what they're figuring out is they go, hey, you know what? Call your broker up and tell them that you're opting out of lending making your shares available to short. Therefore, there's less shares in the float for people to keep shorting, and it tightens the supply essentially. And they're like, it'll just fuck them even more, right? And they had these lists of these big hedge funds that were happening. So I think GameStop was only I think it was only $20 or $25 a couple of weeks ago. It hit 400 today. There are people, they post their screenshots in this Wall Street Bets thing, and they're like, yeah, I turned 10 grand into $1 million. I paid off my house. There's real money to be made. And the great thing is, oh, and here's another thing that happened too. So this narrative started to develop where they're like, look, these hedge funds are pieces of shit. These are the same people who robbed us in 2008, who, gambled in the fucking stock market with all taxpayer money, fucked up, got bailed out. So it became this personal thing where they're like, look, we're going to fuck these short sellers over who are these giant hedge funds, and we are going to put them out of business. So really what you're watching here is it's like David versus Goliath, where David is winning. David, all the money that's going into the accounts of these people on Wall Street Bets, these everyday traders, is literally coming out of some giant multi-billion-dollar hedge fund. It's a real transfer of wealth. It's pretty incredible to watch. Now, granted, don't get me wrong. It's because people are like, is GameStop really worth $300 a share? No, it's not. This is a mechanic of pricing, I guess, and the markets and how the markets work. Eventually, a similar thing happened, I believe, in 2008 with Volkswagen, where Volkswagen went from they had an epic short squeeze, which was based on, they had 107%. I was just watching something on it yesterday. They had 107% of their shares sold short, and Porsche was trying to purchase them. So Porsche had all these shares that weren't available, and this caused this crazy short squeeze, and their price went, I believe it went to 1,000. At one point, Volkswagen, because of the short squeeze, was the most expensive company or most valuable company in the world. It went up 10 times or 15 times in very short order. And this is essentially what you're watching now. It's just a short squeeze where these hedge funds are forced to buy this stock because they're now having like a real existential risk. Like there's this like really famous hedge fund, it's called like Melvin Capital or something, where they were losing they lost like billions and billions of dollars on Monday. Like I think it was billions on Monday, something like that, like something fucking crazy. And last week it started looking like because Wall Street Bets there's 2 million people on the subreddit. It started looking like there was kind of all this chatter where they're like, you know what, we're just going to do this to other companies that are short, maybe not as short as GameStop, but AMC theaters, for example. Now AMC theaters, I live in New York, a theater hasn't been open here in a fucking year. They have huge rents. They're getting creamed. So the stock obviously went to near zero. I bought, sadly, shares on this past Friday. So I saw that what was happening where they're like, oh, they're going to do this short squeeze thing, these coordinated short squeeze. It's basically what's called the bear raid, which was something that happened in the 80s and 90s, but was illegal. It's a legal thing to do because you can't just coordinate to basically fuck over short sellers, because I guess it's easier than you think. But you can't stop a message board of people on the internet who don't know each other from just joking around and doing this stuff. So anyway, so they were like, we're going to do this with BlackBerry. We're going to do this with AMC, Pitney Bowes. There's a lot of other stuff. There was this one company today, KOSS, K-O-S-S. It was up 500%. It was insane, right? But so on Friday, I was like, oh, interesting. So I actually bought BlackBerry and I bought AMC. And then I woke up on Monday morning and they were both up 40%. I sold them. So I bought AMC at $3.40. And then on Monday morning, I was like, it was $4.40. I was like, well, I can't really pass that up, because if you ever trade stocks, what happens is sometimes it goes up to $4.40 and then everybody sells and it goes back to $3.40 and you feel like a fucking clown for being greedy. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to sell it for $4.40 on Monday morning. And then literally this morning in the pre-market, this is Wednesday morning, shares are $25, which was, six times more than what I sold it for 48 hours earlier, which would have been a substantial sum of money. But whatever is what it is. I've learned from these smart people I hang out with that if you ever make money, don't complain about it. It's bad psychologically to do anything like that. So anyway, so we have this crazy short squeeze going on right now, and it started getting more attention. People were, and don't get me wrong, now it's actual hedge funds and stuff are getting in on the action. They go, look, we're just going to wipe out these hedge funds because it's getting so coordinated, and they're going to need to cover these short positions, because if they don't, they're going to literally risk. And now there might be some really crazy things. You could potentially see the market just crash completely for the reason that there's no short only hedge funds where they only go short. They're we're short some stocks and we're long some stocks. But if their short positions go against them so badly, then they're going to have to sell their longs to get get enough money to basically cover their short positions, or they'll be forced to they'll be like, look, your balance, their broker, which is called a prime broker, or whatever, be like, your balance is at zero. Your bank is at $0 because the negative money in your shorts is the same as the positive money in your longs. So we're going to sell all of your longs and buy the stock in your short. So if you can see what happens, is going to make all those longs go down, because they're like, we have to forcibly sell all those. And the more they sell, the lower it goes. And then take that money and forcibly buy the other things that they're short. So it's going to you're going to see some fucking really crazy shit happening probably in the next few days. People on Wall Street Bets there are some people who are like, yeah, we thinking that GameStop goes to a minimum 1,000, could go to $5,000 a share, which is, I think it closed today at 330. So you're talking about 3 to 15 times return, and it'll happen quick if it happens. I don't have the stomach to buy shit like this. Not in any sort of quantity anyhow. But so this has become major news. Like, I mean, it's the reason why I'm talking about it right now. Is every, like, you couldn't open Reddit, like, or not Reddit, sorry, Twitter. Like my Twitter, my Instagram, everybody's talking about just the whole world. Everybody's talking about GameStop because, like, a bunch of self-described retards on Reddit broke the stock market. They literally broke it. Like, they figured out a way that, what they're doing wasn't illegal. I mean, maybe it was illegal, but who are you going to go after? And the crazy thing is so, because these hedge funds, they're powerful. And so this one hedge fund basically didn't get wiped out, but they got so far in the red because of this short position that they had to get a $3 billion injection at the end of the day on Monday, which was instantly wiped out on Tuesday. That $3 billion disappeared into thin air on Tuesday because the stock price kept going up because they were just hoping. They're like, look, and the guy who did it was this guy, Steve Cohen, who is the current new owner of the New York Mets. And he's getting lit up. Now, this guy's got a lot of money, but he's getting obliterated. Like there is a potential. There was a thing in the late 90s called long-term capital markets, which I think is called long-term capital markets, which they were like a hedge fund that they did these like super leveraged, very specific type of trades, where they were like, oh, they're low risk and we make lots of money on them. And then what always happens is there's just this miscalculation where they never foresee. It's like the thing is like the thing that kills you is the thing that you could have never foreseen. And the thing that they could, these hedge funds could have never foreseen is that a bunch of fucking idiots on the internet who think it's hilarious to lose massive sums of money are all going to conspire in a decentralized fashion to topple these massive hedge funds where you literally might see the government having to step in. I don't know if they'll necessarily, but like, you don't know, like all these things are kind of interconnected where it's like you could see bailouts, like where the government has to step in and bail certain people out because these retards on Reddit like cause this massive spiral. So today, like even Biden was talking, or the president was like, yeah, we're monitoring what's going on in GameStop and the volatility in the markets, talking about all that shit. And then today, all of a sudden at like 5 p.m. So Reddit has a Discord server, which is, if you know Discord, it's like this kind of chat. It's on a phone or whatever. It's like, it's kind of cool. They have this big server where all these people can talk to each other. But it's like it's online obviously, but it's not a site. It's like an app. And then they have their subreddit. So Discord nukes their channel, which is like, millions of people. They Discord's like, we're banning you for like hate speech, apparently is what it was. They basically said that, because the thing is they'll call, like, again, it's jokes. And also it's like, how are you supposed to moderate 2 million people? Like, obviously, like, imagine if you're a hedge fund and you go, hey, we need to get these guys, we need to chop them down because in order to make like this stop, all this pain stop, we need to get rid of Wall Street Bets. We need to get rid of Discord. So you go into Discord, and on their Discord, the mods of Wall Street Bets had talked about how they're like, we have all these filters, so anytime any bad words are said, they're automatically filtered out, but you can get around them by using all these like special characters or whatever. And so imagine you're like you're like, you can't control what every single person says, and it's a public thing. So imagine you're a hedge fund, you need to shut them down. You go, hey, go open an account, say all this bad shit, then we're going to call up our buddies at Discord and be like, hey, you got to ban these guys because it's hate speech in here. So they banned their Discord. Okay, it's gone. And then Reddit is basically like, we're not gonna, from what I understand, they're like, we're gonna rate limit you where you're using too much like bandwidth, essentially. So they had to make their thing private. The moment this is how like crazy things are with all these stocks. So any of these quote unquote meme stocks, you're talking like AMC, Pitney Bowes, Fizz, which are the makers of LaCroix, GameStop. There's lots. There's like 20. Because that's the thing too. These hedge funds, they have to publicly list all their short positions. And then on top of that, so this hedge fund, is it Melvin or Marvin or whatever? I can't remember what it's called. I think it's Melvin. They're the ones who are like famously short. And then that's another thing too. And then Elon Musk, they famously shorted Tesla. So Elon Musk had, and they bragged about it. And Elon Musk, like, faced essentially like Tesla had like existential threat because of this short. So then Elon Musk is like, hey, I love GameStop and Wall Street Bets, which caused literally like GameStop to go up like 50% because he hates these short sellers. And he's like, you know what, I'm just going to throw fuel on the fire and fuck them over. So they get the subreddit shut down. This is like, 6 hours ago or something. The moment it gets shut down, this is what happens in the markets, is all of these meme stocks tanked. They all instantly like dropped like 40, 30%, 40%, like massive moves to the downside. Like tons of money just wiped out instantly. Like I think GameStop dropped $90 or something just because Wall Street Bets got deleted from the internet. Like just like think about that. Like you're talking about, I don't know, $50 billion or $20 billion. You count all these stocks, it's like, 50 billion probably just wiped out of thin air because a subreddit got deleted. And then they said, no, it's not deleted, it's private. And then it went back up public, and then all these stocks just ripped higher again because the people are like, oh, I guess this short squeeze trade is back on. So there's this coordinated thing right now where everybody's like, and people like me are even realizing it. We're like, look, if you just buy stocks of companies that, and now I might end up eating my words because I'm not doing this actively or in any sort of like huge size. So it's like, whatever, I'm doing this more for fun. But I think like hedge funds are realizing like, look, if we just start buying up all these companies with these massive short positions and everybody just kind of has the same idea at the same time, they're going to have to unwind these short positions, which are going to make them get out of hand really quickly. The price is going to skyrocket because they're just going to be begging to buy shares to get out. And then as that happens, they're literally all going to just go bankrupt. And this is like, there is this like tone on Wall Street Bets where they're like, look, it's like these people fucked us over. Now it's time to get theirs. We're going to literally ruin all these people. We're going to put them out of business. All these hedge funds, they've done so much bad to the world. Now we're about to fuck them over. So anyways, GameStop is back. And there are some interesting things too. Like, so AMC was on the brink of bankruptcy. And then because of essentially of like a meme / joke of we're like, hey, we're a bunch of retards. We're going to buy AMC. What a retarded thing to do. The stock price went up so much of AMC that it essentially saves them from any potential bankruptcy because they have pools of shares that they can just sell to raise money to prevent the bankruptcy. But the only reason the stocks went up in the first place was because essentially like a joke and to fuck over hedge funds because people think it's funny to just like ruin these hedge funds. And again, they're making lots of money. Like they figured out a way to, it's like essentially a revolution. They figured out a way to transfer all this money from these greedy fucking not scam artists, but from these people to their own bank accounts. It's really amazing. And I don't think we've seen the end of it. My friend who's like used to run a hedge fund, he's like, this could go on for 3 to 6 months. He imagines the SEC and the regulators are going to step in and they're going to do something, but it's like, what are you going to say? There's no criminal element to it. Like they're not going to do anything there. The entire thing is absolutely fascinating, and I know this was long. I've been talking about it for the last 40 minutes, but crazy shit happened with GameStop. If you currently own GameStop, good luck. I have a friend of mine. He's owned it for a while, and his literal thing is he goes, we're just gonna bleed these shorts dry. He's like, we're gonna put them out of business. But the problem is you might see some real world consequences because of how everything's intertwined. Like these businesses, they have huge lines of credit, and like, what happens when they end up just like losing $50 billion, but $20 billion they didn't have. And then some company is like, oh, we're out of business. And then, some pension fund that owned GameStop and they didn't realize it or whatever. They had some exposure to a hedge fund that was short GameStop that could have never modeled taking 10,000% losses or whatever the fuck, because it's infinite. Like theoretically the shares of GameStop, and don't get me wrong, in 1 year from now, if you're listening to this and it's January 2022, GameStop will probably be either the largest company in the world, it will be bigger than Apple, but more likely GameStop will be worth $20 a share. There's actually an analyst who came out today and he goes, all right, we've with all of what's going on, we've updated our price target on GameStop to $10 a share. He goes, well, that's what we think, pretty fairly valued at $10 a share. So it's bananas. Bananas what's going on. A lot of people are really invested. I've had so many people being like, what the fuck is going on with this? What is going on? So I tried to just explain it to the best of my capacity. And yeah, I mean, that's about it. I don't think this saga's over. Saga, I don't know. But that's where we're at with that. Okay, that's enough for the world of finance. I just tuckered myself out talking about that. I'm going to talk about, you know what, we've already done 40 minutes. I'm going to talk about a few things, and then it's almost 1 a.m. here. I've been shooting all day, shooting some fun sketches with Ryan Long, so I'm pretty tired. But this I had to talk about because this made me so happy. This is a comedy-related thing. It's a Toronto-related thing. So I've been gone from Toronto. Excuse me, I had to have some water. I've been gone from Toronto since the end of 2019. A year and a half. I miss it sometimes. Sometimes I don't. But so there was, before I started comedy, there was a show. It was called, there was a sketch troupe in Toronto. They were called the Sketchersons. Very, very clever sketch group name. They're called the Sketchersons, and they used to host a show called Sunday Night Live at the Comedy Bar. The Comedy Bar, I loved the Comedy Bar. I had great times at the Comedy Bar. That was the place where I put on the free speech comedy show, and people broke the lock. I have a lot of history with the Comedy Bar. No ill will towards the Comedy Bar. Love the Comedy Bar. Okay, so the Sketchersons had this show. It was a sketch troupe that, you know, a bunch of friends just started. But essentially it became its own thing where it would be like Saturday Night Live, where, you know, a group of friends got together, started a sketch troupe, but then they all started moving on in their lives. They would, you know, get roles on shows or whatever. They would move on, and then someone would take their place and they'd have a new rotating cast. And some people would stay on for a couple of years or whatever. But it was a Saturday Night Live style sketch show. I've had lots of friends who have hosted it. I never hosted it, thankfully. But so yesterday, they released an announcement on social media, Facebook. This is what it says: the Sketchersons Sunday Night Live. So these are some super woke people, as you can imagine. Obviously, just the most woke people. So this is what it says. In June of 2020, the Sketchersons released a statement on social media, see next image, in support of Black Lives Matter. So that was like when the George Floyd stuff, they go, as a sketch troupe, we feel we really need to comment on the state of race affairs in the world. Because, you know, when cities are burning and people are getting racially profiled, killed by the police, people need to know where sketch comedy troupes stand on the matter. You know, it's important. It's like you want to know where the president stands, and you want to know where the Sketchersons and other sketch troupes stand. So they said, we released a statement on social media in support of Black Lives Matter. It was taken down the following day. So what happened is, because this is a thing that happens a lot with the wokies, is that they try and be so woke, but then in the pursuit of being so woke, it turns out that they're always trying to like one up each other because they're all fucking snakes. And then people are like, oh, that's not woke enough. You're as bad as like fucking those cops who killed George Floyd. So they go, while writing the statement, we contacted the current and former black members of the troupe for input, but released it before we received feedback from everyone we reached out to. The white members of the group prioritized being part of the BLM conversation over listening to black voices. We were virtue signaling. Furthermore, we pushed for a quick response during a traumatic time for the black community. We rushed the statement, and we didn't reflect on our own complicity in upholding white supremacy within the troupe. Our actions were insensitive and disrespectful, and we are sorry for the pain we caused. Now, I don't know if you watch South Park, but that episode of South Park where they're sniffing their own farts, this is the most sniffing their own farts shit ever. Nobody gives a fuck what a white comedy sketch troupe thinks about fucking Black Lives Matter. Like, nobody cares. You are literally trying to just insert yourself into this thing to just make your, I mean, at least they had the self-awareness to be like, we were virtue signaling. But the funny thing is they were saying that and then they're just doing it again. So they go, the Sketchersons has been and continues to be predominantly white and has not done the work to create a welcoming space for BIPOC performers like much of live comedy in Toronto. Our show is currently on hiatus and will remain so for the foreseeable future. There's no comedy in Toronto. Every place is closed. When the show returns, we will regroup and further explore how we can prioritize the voices, safety, and inclusion of marginalized people. Sincerely, the Sketchersons. And then they have this is the original statement, and they go, the Sketchersons has been a Toronto sketch institution for 16 years, performing on Sunday Night Live at Comedy Bar. We've had 86 cast members. Only 10 of them have been BIPOC. Only 5 of those have been black, 5 of 86. And a lot of people pointed this out. They go, yeah, the black population of Toronto is 9%, okay? 9% of 86 would be about 8 people. They've had 5 of the 86 members have been black, whereas fair representation would have been 8 of the 86 members black. So it's not like some absolute travesty, okay? It's not you're like, oh my God, what is this, a fucking Klan rally? They missed it by 3 people. And again, you should not be booking your sketch show based on people's race. That is racist. That's insanity, okay? But they don't get it. They're just so deep in the collectivism, like woke nonsense that they could never see it. They literally they think they're white knights, no pun intended. They think they're doing the Lord's work by making sure that there's 3 more black people. But again, like if you told them that, they'd go, oh, no. It should be 50% black. And you're like, why 50% black? They're only 9% of the population. And they're like, oh, well, I don't know. Just black people have had a tough year. So we should have retroactively made 50% of the cast black. Like, these people are fucking dumb. And I know some of these people, and they mean well, but they not good at thinking, I guess. So then they go, our troupe has benefited from a system that was built upon white supremacy. Imagine thinking that sketch comedy system is built upon white supremacy. Like, how fucking crazy are you? Like, these people need to get out. I'm honestly starting to think that the weight of this COVID lockdown is really starting to make people crack, because it got a bunch of the lamest, nerdiest, like, these are nerds, no offense, but these are the lamest fucking sketch troupes. Like, I don't know if you know a lot about sketch comedy, but these aren't like hard ass edgy people. They're definitely not white supremacists. It's insane. Okay. It got them admitting that they're all white supremacists. It goes, the last few years we've made an effort to be more inclusive of queer and BIPOC voices, but it hasn't been enough. We've dragged our feet, but recent events have forced us to make major changes with the Sketchersons because Black Lives Matter. Yeah, because, there's no way of showing solidarity with black people getting killed than having more black people in your sketch comedy troupe. Insane, like literally insane that they think that like there's their little sketch comedy troupe in Toronto. And I will say this, moving from Toronto to New York is when you're in Toronto is like the New York of Canada. So you think, oh, the stuff that's going on in Toronto matters. And then you move to New York and you go, yeah, none of it matters. Nobody gives a shit what's going on in Toronto. People give about as much of a shit what's going on in Toronto as they do about what's going on in fucking Kansas or like Melbourne, Australia, in terms of the comedy scene. Nobody fucking cares. It's either what's going on in New York or LA, and to a slightly lesser degree London, but still, like, nobody really cares what's going on in the London comedy scene. In New York, it's like, there's a few guys, people are like, oh, these guys are fucking super famous in England, but like, again, nobody cares. And Toronto is 2 hours away from New York. Nobody cares. But they think that everybody cares, and it's a big deal. And you know what? We're going to dismantle white supremacy and the patriarchy and all that nonsense by changing the makeup of our sketch comedy troupe that performs once a week and nobody knows one sketch from. So, and then they go on to be like, look, the sketch comedy community is rigged to support the success of white people, and we are part of the problem. First off, that is... and this is currently the 2 head writers and 2 producers are all white. We are ready to dismantle this system, and here are the steps we will take. So basically, they just said they posted this on Facebook, and basically said we're canceling ourselves. The Sketchersons is done. Basically, they're just firing everybody, and then they're gonna restart the Sketchersons and make sure that it reflects that the Sketchersons reflects the diversity of the troupe. Blah blah blah. And again, the only way you can truly do this, which is the crazy thing, is you have to go, okay, if you want to say that we're diverse and that we're equitable and all this stuff, is you have to go take a census of, and again, how do you choose? Do you choose the city you live in? Do you choose the province you live in? Do you choose the country you live in? I wouldn't say the continent, because that doesn't make sense, but say, do you go take the statistics on race in Canada, or do you take them on Toronto? You go, look, Toronto is 44% white. So we're going to have 5 out of 10 people have to be white in our group. And then you say it's 50% men, 50% women. So we need 2 white men, 2 white women. It's 9% black. So we go, okay, well, we need to have, say you only have 10 people. You can't have 1 black woman and 1 black man, because that's now 20%. That's overrepresented. And so anyways, they posted this whole thing, basically saying that, like, if we return, blah, blah, blah. And, like, who the fuck would want to watch this bullshit at this point? Anyways, so they posted this thing and got lit the fuck up to the point where people are like, first off, nobody even gave a shit about it. But it's just the self-flagellation. Like, I honestly feel like these people would be like, if a black person was like, you know what, the only way this is really going to work is I just need you to commit suicide. I need you to not exist, because if you're a white person, you're taking up space. So if you could just kill yourself, there'd be 1 less white person on Earth. There'd be 1 less person in the comedy, 1 white person in the comedy community. You'd be doing a lot of favors if you just kill yourself. Some of these people would be like, I'll do it. I'll kill myself. I'm so fucking woke, I'll commit suicide. So anyways, they wrote this, and then this was like became popular on Twitter, because just making fun of them because they're so ridiculous. And then they started deleting all the comments as fast as they were, and they were fucking pouring in. They've kind of given up, it looks like, but they had to do an edit. They go, all comments deemed offensive or making light of the situation will be removed. Literally, almost every comment was making light of the situation. I think there were 2 that were like, oh, we're with you, blah, blah, blah. So let's see what comments I can find, because they keep deleting them. Like, it's so someone goes, I'm confused. Did they intend this as a joke, or are they for real? And then this person, she goes, not a joke. And then everybody's just laughing. And then someone says, 25% of Toronto's Asian, meaning you're missing at least 17 Asians. And again, this goes back to the whole thing, because you go, okay, so yeah, you need 17 of the 86 people should have been Asian, or you're missing 17. And they go, oh yeah, and we're not trying to be diverse like Asians or whatever. No, that's stupid. We just need 3 more black people, and racism will be solved. Like, in their mind, they're like, even if they're like, okay, you know what, we're gonna overrepresent black people. It should have been 8. We're gonna do 15 black people. It's going to do nothing for racism. Nobody fucking gives a shit. And in Canadian entertainment right now, it's like there is a huge benefit to not being white. Like, the people who are not white get way more work than the people who are white, because people are like, we need to have more non-white people. But the fact is, it's just a super white place. I don't know what to tell you. Like, it just is. Like, Canada is like an 80% white country. Like, I believe that's what the most recent number is. It's like 80% white. You can't fault the people who live there for that, but it's just what it is. So then anyways, people were like making fun of them, and they just went ahead and deleted tons of things, but it looks like they've given up. And then this was my favorite one, because this is like just someone who is just so this girl, I guess, is in the Sketchersons. She's white, so she's probably not in the Sketchersons anymore, but she used to be in the Sketchersons until she literally canceled herself because she's fucking retarded. She goes, the Sketchersons is an institution rooted in white supremacy, and I have been a part of the problem. Like, you think you're a white supremacist because you do like crappy sketch comedy? Like, the levels of delusion, I honestly cannot, I know I've said this, but I cannot get over this. Like, this is like the type of sketch me and Ryan would make. It's like, you're like, the like a sketch, like a bunch of lame, super woke, social justice warrior sketch comics who think they're white supremacists. Like, it's fucking crazy. Uh, so anyways, that happened. The Sketchersons is no more. They're probably going to, I mean, it'll come back, but it'll all be like trans people and black people. I have one friend actually in it, Tim Blair, who's actually, he's super funny. He's a black guy. But again, you're like, you almost think you're like, he must find it, be kind of annoyed that he's like, yeah, I want to be in this based on the fact that I'm like super funny and on merit. I don't want to be in this sketch troupe because you guys need a black guy. Like, that's crazy. That's the opposite of, like, that is racism, even though it doesn't, seem that way, but whatever, is what it is. I'm going to do a couple sports things because sports is coming up, and then we're going to wrap this up because I'm tired as fuck. Hank Aaron, Hammer and Hank, non-steroid home run leader in the MLB, died. I haven't talked about COVID or Trump yet, by the way. We're an hour in, no COVID, no Trump. Pretty amazing. But so Hank Aaron died this past week. He got the vaccine 2 weeks ago, the COVID vaccine. He made a huge spectacle. He's like, get the vaccine, it's good for you. And then, and then he died 2 weeks later. There's been reports of older people dying from the vaccine. So I don't really have much of a point on this other than there's a lot of conspiracy people who are like, man, these fucking vaccines. And then like, yeah, they are literally killing some people. I think the net benefit is good, but, and maybe he would have died of COVID, so it's worth a risk. But the fact is he lasted a year without getting COVID, then took the COVID vaccine and then dropped dead. And it is happening. So that is an interesting little thing. That's not really the super sports thing, but we're going to stay in baseball. We're going to stay in the world of baseball. Curt Schilling, famous for the bloody sock game, Boston Red Sox pitcher. He's a big-time Trump guy, conservative. He, I believe he was like pro-insurrection, the Capitol insurrection. He's basically like your classic, really far-right guy. Former, I think he won some Cy Youngs. He was a great pitcher. I remember him. Won a World Series. He was on that 2004 Red Sox team that came back from the Yankees. Great pitcher. So this year, when you go to the Hall of Fame, this year is the first year in quite some time where nobody's getting inducted into the Hall of Fame. Baseball Hall of Fame is really hard to get into. There were 3 people who were eligible this year. 3 or 4. Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, both amazing players, but both took steroids and got busted for it. They got 60% of the vote. And basically what happens is you have 10 years to get voted in. You need 75% of sports writers to vote. And if you don't get the 75% of the votes within 10 years, then you're no longer eligible to get voted in. And there's like a group of players who can pick you to go in. But I think mostly what happens is if you don't get in from the writers, then you're not getting in. And it's really hard to get into the Hall of Fame in baseball. It's the hardest one, right? So all 3 of them are in their 9th year of eligibility. I believe maybe Bonds and Clemens are in their last year of eligibility. I'm not sure about that. But so they got like 60% of the vote, and they keep getting like around 60. So essentially what's happening is 40% of people have been like, look, you took steroids, you don't get in. Not for me. 60% are like, we don't care, but you need 75. So they're not getting in unless they're let in. But, they're not letting Pete Rose in, who had like 4,000 hits. So he's not getting in. Curt Schilling, he didn't take steroids. He was a really good pitcher. I think he won over 300 games. Really good pitcher. Definitely, he goes, I don't think I'm Hall of Fame worthy, but he's essentially, the writers are saying, we're not voting this guy in because of his politics. We don't want to give someone who has a big platform like more airtime to spew like, Trump stuff. Whatever, Trump-related things we don't want. So he said they didn't vote him in. He goes, look, I'm not getting in. I want you to remove me from the ballot. I don't want to be on my 10th year of voting. And we'll let, like, the players, whoever are deciding. But he's like, I don't want to get in anymore from the writers or whatever. And so there's this big debate where they're like, should you not be in the Hall of Fame because of your politics when you didn't cheat? I would say, yeah, let him be in the fucking Hall of Fame. Is he good enough? Is he a Hall of Fame baseball player? What the fuck does his politics have to do with after the fact? Like, if he was some crazy pro Antifa guy, that would be like, sure. I mean, that would be a weird thing for a baseball player to be. But anyways, that was a big debate. My guess is like he's not going to get in the Hall of Fame. It seems like he was a borderline one. Baseball is the hardest Hall of Fame to get into. But it was interesting that, like, he's kind of the first real casualty of, like, because if the guy just never had Twitter, he would have been in the Hall of Fame. Like, you think there aren't guys in the Hall of Fame who aren't, like, crazy racists who, like, drop the N-bomb nonstop? They just didn't have Twitters. They didn't get fucking busted on it. But once you're in, you're in. And then last thing is Tom Brady, Tampa Bay. Tom Brady back in the Super Bowl. 10th fucking Super Bowl. Unreal. First year in Tampa Bay. Is going to the Super Bowl. Is going to play the Kansas City Chiefs. I like the Chiefs to win. I do, but who knows? He's played in, I think he's been in the league for 22 years or something, 21 years. He's played in 10 Super Bowls. Like, he's literally played in almost 50% of the Super Bowls he was eligible to play in. That is crazy. He is potentially one of the greatest athletes ever. And so after he won the game, Colin Kaepernick starts trending on Twitter. And so, Twitter, they have their explanations of why things are trending. And so it says, as Tom Brady makes his way to another Super Bowl, some football fans are pointing out that the quarterback's politics, i.e. his friendship with Donald Trump, haven't derailed his career in the way that Colin Kaepernick's peaceful protest of police violence did, arguably leading to his exit from the NFL. Yeah, very arguably. I love how people are like, this guy's the greatest quarterback of all time. Like, you don't understand. Quarterback is the type of position where at any point in time, there's 5 good ones in the NFL. There's 32 teams. There's 64 to 80 quarterbacks. Some teams carry 3, I guess. I don't know, but not all of them do. But, you have your practice squad or whatever. If you include the backups or whatever, there's 9,600 quarterbacks. 5 of them are good. 5 of them are, like, really good. Then there's, like, another 5 to 8 that are, like, pretty good. And then the rest are just whatever, average. They might spend a couple years in the league. They'll be gone. It's a carousel. This guy is as good as anybody's ever been in his position. He's 43 years old. He's still amazing. And then people are like, why hasn't being friends with Donald Trump derailed his career? Guess what? You can do whatever the fuck you want when you're that good. Other than committing real crimes, you can do whatever the fuck you want. Colin Kaepernick was as good as one of those people in the bottom 50. That's why. I can't believe we're still having this debate all this time later, because people still are, like, not getting it. They're like, yeah, the reason Colin Kaepernick is not in the league, I'm sure that all that, the kneeling stuff had something to do with it, and he was proven right with all the Black Lives Matter stuff or whatever you think. But the fact is that if he was as good as Tom Brady, he could have fucking played in a dashiki or whatever the fuck. He could have done whatever he wanted if you're as good as Tom Brady. But he wasn't. Nobody in their right mind thinks he is, except woke people. I bet you a lot of people in that sketch troupe think Colin Kaepernick is the GOAT and a way better quarterback than Tom Brady. And on that note, we're going to end this because I'm fucking exhausted. This might be the longest episode ever. I think this is the longest episode I've ever done. So thank you if you've made it to the end. I do appreciate you listening. If you enjoy this podcast, tell a friend. Please, if you're going to invest in any of these crazy stocks, be safe, because there's going to be some wild swings. Who knows? Maybe next week you're going to listen to this and then come back and you're going to be a fucking millionaire. And if you do, just tweet at me and let me know what you think, because I hope it works out for you. I really do. I hope it works out for everybody except for those lousy hedge funds. Thank you very much, everybody. Please, if you're watching this on YouTube, like and subscribe. I will see you next week. Bye-bye.